So bull in a china shop is not your approach.
No, no, I'm going in surgical. Carpenters are there usually, the way I like to say it, from shovel in the ground to turn the keys over or hang the curtains. The ones that are just there kind of barking orders and just making sure that those subs get their part of the project done, that's the ones where your job sites are struggling. Saying each trade speaks a different language, you're learning part of that language, and you'll be able to, with years of experience, as you move along, you'll be able to start telling if there's going to be a bottleneck because of something that trade's doing. Keep your eyes open, listen to the instructor, learn that tape measure inside and out.
You're heading into what, year 4 of Random Thoughts on Construction, plus you got your own LinkedIn show, Construction Talks Unfiltered. What made a 50-year carpenter decide that they needed to kind of document their thoughts on camera?
Just, it kind of all started a few years ago, talking with folks like Jerry Aliberti and Wally Adamczyk and a few others, and it was like, we were just discussing things, and I saw how they were putting things out, and it was like, so I had a conversation with Jerry, and he says, yeah, he goes, you should, do it to pass your knowledge along. And that's kind of what started it, and it's just kind of grown from there.
Yeah, I love that. What's been the reaction or the message that you've kind of received that surprised you, or what kind of feedback have you gotten?
I've got some great feedback from many different people on it, and it's kind of strange because being, here in the United States, I've ended up with followers from all around the world. And which is really cool because, construction's basically the same wherever you are. Like the steps on, of a building are still basically the same. You just have to deal with different hurdles.
Yeah.
On wherever you're at. Different materials, different ways workers work.
Yeah, and I've watched a couple of your Random Thoughts, and I what I appreciate about them is they're just you talking about something you're kind of learning in the moment. It might be a safety talk, it might be some element of what it's like to be a traveling superintendent. There's a part of the industry that is hidden to a majority of people that I think you're shedding some light on, which is appreciated.
Yeah, that's some of the feedback that I've got, because that's why I said, it's not really scripted. Yeah, there's been some of my posts that I've got onto ChatGPT and say, hey, this is a thought I've got, give me some ideas, and I take it and just kind of expand. But most of it's come from real life experience on job sites from the last 36 plus years.
Once you get a makeup guy, then we'll start realizing there's a difference in the videos. So one of our conversations, Clyde, you talked about the kind of ideal background of a superintendent for a GC, and the merit of a carpenter kind of going into the superintendent side. Can you kind of talk through what your kind of perspective was there?
For the simple fact that a good carpenter that's been around, no matter what, carpenters are on a job site mostly the longest. I've got into job sites where I've just had layout points from the surveyors where I've set up the total station to shoot the foundation points, to dig the foundations, do the concrete footers, do the concrete forms for any walls. You're there for the framing. You're working alongside the electricians, the plumbers, the HVAC guys as you're framing things or making openings in walls for them for HVAC penetrations that might be needed. Carpenters are there usually, the way I like to say it, from shovel in the ground to turn the keys over or hang the curtains.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think, there's a variety of paths to a management position on the GC side, and I think you can always kind of tell where someone's expertise lives, and there's a variety of maybe expertise that has merits. I think maybe thinking through your own kind of career path. How did you? Because start at 6 years old if you need to, but like, how did you get into the trades originally?
Um, like I said, Dad was an architect. He worked for an architectural firm. So when we built their house back when I was 6, 5 and 6. I mean, I learned from my grandfather, from my dad, and from a very good friend of the family that helped us build the house. Was a union carpenter. So I learned how to swing a hammer and use a handsaw at that age. And then when we had the house built, Dad had his own little design studio or room in the house with his big drafting table. Well, I have my own little drafting table right beside him. So I learned, and to this day, I still do a lot of my drawings on designs the old-fashioned way. And, with a ruler, pencil, straight edge, architect's rule, measuring everything out, feeling that pencil going across the paper.
All right, sponsor break. Lars, real quick, when was the last time you got a new set of drawings from an architect and they didn't cloud anything?
Well, the one that cost me a couple $100,000 was back, I think, in 2017. So, yeah, lesson learned there.
Yeah, so, what I like about what Trick Tools is building is they're looking at tools to help kind of remove the mundane from the job site. And, same as you, every time there was a bulletin or an addendum, I would go back to the designers and ask them to at least highlight or give me a cover letter on the changes. And that was always like pulling like teeth. But Trunk Tools is now automating that. So you get a bulletin come in, it automatically highlights the changes. You don't have to do a thing.
Well, it's also hitting RFIs, right? It's also hitting submittals. And when we think about standardizing ops, right, and providing that, sort of resource to those field operators, what I see it as, it's sort of like this like mentor within the company that structures, standardizes, keeps it moving in the right direction, looks out for risk. And just this last week, I had a QC manager just pass along a submittal to an owner without doing a review because he was too busy, and it was wrong. And the classic owner statement is, did you even review this, right? So this to me is carte blanche. We absolutely did. And think about getting that first pass before your field manager ever even actually has to do the first pass. Someone's doing it for them. So to me, it's about speed. It increases accuracy and helps standardize ops out in the field, right?
Yeah, and this is the kind of AI that we've talked about on the podcast, really appreciating, right? Which is looking at ways to elevate the craftsman at the heart of project delivery. Give
me time back so I can be out in the field managing risk, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yep. So, all right, if you're a little curious, check it out, trunktools.com/podcast. And if you mention Construction Conversations, you get a discount.
Discount. Demos are free, and and you guys get a discount. So let's go.
That's right.
Sponsor break. If you spend any time running a project, you know the answer is almost always sitting in the contract document somewhere. The catch is that it's almost never in one document. It's split across the contract, the specs, and some flow-down clause 3 layers deep that nobody connects until it's already cost money. That's the whole premise behind Document Crunch. That risk doesn't live inside any single document. It lives in the gaps between them. And most teams never look at all of them together until they're standing in a dispute. The average construction dispute in the U.S. now runs about $60 million, according to Arcadis. It's a lot of money. And the root cause they point to isn't fraud or bad intent. It's people not fully understanding what they agreed to. So Document Crunch built a platform around closing that gap. Crunch AI reads the documents, surfaces the risks, and it cites the exact page and clause, that's big, So you're not just taking its word for it. Project Assist lets your team act on it, ask questions across the entire project document set, and draft your submittals, notices, and RFIs right from the chat window. And the whole thing runs on your own company standards. So the office and the field are working off the same playbook for bid through closeout. No disconnects. It's live now across the US and Canada. Go to documentcrunch.com/construction conversations and book a demo.
So what do you think is, with that carpentry background that you have, for the superintendents without that, what do you think a carpenter sees that a super came up maybe another way is going to miss?
The main thing, no matter which background you come from, young superintendents walk the site, learn, go watch the other trades that you might not be a part of.
Yeah.
Watch them work. Watch how they, handle the material and install it. That way you're learning part of that language of that they speak fluently, saying each trade speaks a different language. You're learning part of that language, and you'll be able to, with years of experience, as you move along, you'll be able to start telling if there's going to be a bottleneck because of something that trade's doing. You'll just, it takes time in the field to really get to understand the whole picture and the way the flow should go.
Yep. Do you have specific methods of handing off knowledge and expertise to the younger folks you're interacting with, or does that, most of knowledge transfer happens through kind of osmosis in our industry. Is that how, I guess, are you handling yourself any differently on a site because of how you were trained?
Yeah and no. In my younger years, back in the 90s, I kind of ran a job site different than I do now. Back then, it was easy for the Marine to come out and to start yelling.
Yep.
Now, after some other training, and thankfully, with being a union carpenter, I've had some really great training on being able to read people through different leadership classes that I've had, that I've gone out to at our International Training Center. The DISC assessment, and just for disclosure, I'm a high DC on that circle of the DISC, so I still have that drive and push.
Yeah.
But I'm also, calculating, and then now being able to understand the I's and the S's, I can see how different people, do take conversations.
Yeah.
I've had to adjust how I talk to people at different times because, I didn't realize it, but like I said, back in the 90s, I ran jobs different. I didn't realize I was shutting down these S-type personalities.
Yeah.
They were still producing, but they would slow down and shy away from things. And, I didn't realize why until just a couple of years ago.
Does that make your current kind of process, like, would you run a DISC assessment on a project team now as a superintendent? Like, it seems like that's pretty insightful, and a superintendent armed with that kind of insight can be pretty effective.
You kind of do it mentally.
Yeah.
Just by talking, you can see how different crews react. And like, if you're not getting the response from your normal way of talking to them, you kind of learn to adjust.
You're like, Bob, stop being such an ass.
Yeah.
So was part of your training in that kind of variety of a personality assessment?
Yeah, to a point. And the one leadership training out there, it was kind of short, but we went through the DISC assessments, and then we had different, breakout classes where we would kind of interact on speaking and then receiving information. and you can pick up who was what without knowing what they actually came across as.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think there's one. It's just the power of a system. I read some Dale Carnegie books early in my career, and one of the famous ones, just How to Win Friends and Influence People. I think I think some of that should just be one required reading. I think a personality assessment for teams can be really effective. I can imagine if you try and extend that to some of the trades, you might get some swear words in response. But I think to your point, you can get an understanding without really even receiving that assessment back. What is so? I'm kind of interested in union carpenter, kind of open shop GC. How did that transition go?
Uh, it kind of happened. The open shop GC that I'm working for, um, it kind of made me an offer.
Yeah.
As this past winter kind of hurt in PA, had left one company and went back to work for a concrete contractor that I had been working for, who is actually now signatory with the carpenters.
Okay.
I had worked for him and ran work for him on a couple project labor agreements, and then they ended up going signatory, so I went back to work for them. But just the weather and everything this past winter was just bad in Pennsylvania as far as concrete work goes.
Yeah, I believe that.
And then this company made me an offer at the right time, as we were extremely slow and just kind of needed the work, and that's where I'm at right now.
Well, and I think your history of being in the trades and now on the GC side, it gives you a pretty interesting angle, because I think we've mainly speak from a GC perspective on the show, and I think often there's a reference to the disconnect with the trades, and if you talk to the trades, there's a reference to kind of a disconnect with the GC. Now, living in both worlds, what do you see as the reason behind, like, what do the really good GCs do, and what do the really good trades do to keep a good partnership on a site?
A big part of it is communication.
Yeah.
One thing that I've dealt with more with this GC, because I've worked for many different GCs over the years, and bounced back and forth from specialty contractors to a GC, and just wherever was needed. A lot of our clients, nationwide, we have to deal with a lot of client hired subs that aren't necessarily our sub. Different, like millwork, low voltage, security, cameras, that type thing. Having to work those trades in to get the project completed can be a little challenging, because a lot of times those subs kind of get set in their ways on this is the time we're coming in. This is the, and I was like, no, listen here. We need to work together on this. It's like, you're here to do the project. I'm here to run the project to make it smooth and flow and hopefully get done ahead of schedule, because the client's looking to be able to get merchandise back out, on that section of the building or even the overall project.
Yep.
So there's been a couple headbutts here and there in the last couple months, but overall it's been going good, and those subs have been working with me.
Good. Do you think the common misperception, I think, of just the project ecosystem is that the GC is the only one that's kind of looking out for the owner interest and looking at the project holistically? As someone who comes from the trades, what is the trades perspective on the larger owner goal and thinking of how to optimize for the whole, so that the job site as an entity itself is successful rather than just your trade. Is that a true misperception, or
It can be, and that is one thing where I try to communicate early with the subs and get them to understand the overall flow of the project to try to make their job easier, so we're not stacking on top of each other. You know, do you still have subs that come in that say, well, this is my part of the work, this is what my contract is, this is what I'm doing, and I'm getting it done and getting it out of here? And that causes problems.
yeah,
I've said that for years. And when you get everybody, when you have a good superintendent, or most of your GCs now, kind of, they're there to protect the client with the subs and so on and so forth, but they're also there to get the subs to work together. And the ones that are really performing well are doing just that. The ones that are just there kind of barking orders and just making sure that those subs get their part of the project done, that's the ones where your job sites are struggling.
yeah. So as a traveling superintendent, you kind of get dropped into, I imagine, some challenging environments to kind of try and set back the reset the ship a little bit. What are the, like, you walk a job for the first time? What are the things you kind of look for immediately as why a project is behind schedule, or trying to identify what the real problem is?
If I get thrown into a project that's behind, the first couple days, I'm literally just kind of walking the project and then looking at what the schedule should have been, trying to deduce where that bottleneck is, and if it's communication, is it materials? Is it trades getting stacked on top of each other or not cooperating? Your first couple of days, if you get thrown into a situation like that you're going in to take over for somebody, you're just kind of trying to figure out what the damage is before you can figure out what kind of damage control you have to do.
So bull in a china shop is not your approach.
No, I'm going in surgical.
Yeah, that's smart. So start with schedule, start with observation. Like, how much attention do you pay just to the dynamic, the culture of the site?
Well, that's part of the watching everything going on. Because if you're seeing trades fighting amongst each other, and the dynamic of the site is tense, then you definitely going to have problems, and you've got to figure out. It's like, okay, sit everybody down, say, okay, let's have a talk. What's troubling you? What's troubling you? What kind of bottlenecks are you dealing with? Is it something from your office? Is it something from our office? Is it something with the client, with a material supplier? What kind of issues are you seeing that we can address? Now that I'm here, I can help address.
Yeah.
Take some of that pressure off of you.
So a little bit of a family meeting, like, hey,
yes.
let's talk about a State of the Union. What else is in that tool chest of, hey, there's clearly a morale and a culture issue. We've sat down. I get a lay of the land. I kind of understand who's at fault and what's happening. What else do you do? Pizza party? What else? What's your go-to?
I've done pizza parties. That helps sometimes.
Yeah.
But just the main thing is to have an open communication and a listening ear, and then try to help them fix those issues to gain their trust and respect. Let them know that you're there for them, not just, for your company. Communication goes a long way. Being able to talk to them like individuals, treat each company and each worker with respect, which I'm sure you've seen me talk about before. That goes a long way in smoothing those things over. Once those workers learn that you're not just there to browbeat them to get the job done, they'll start, you know, gaining your trust, or you'll gain their trust, respect, and they'll step up and work above and beyond what you'd actually expect.
I have seen that, and I think part of what I'm hearing is to lead well, to lead others well, you need to kind of start with leading yourself, and be in a position mentally where you're thinking about the needs of others, and you're able to hear and listen. I think we, as an industry, I think there's once a year we pause and think about mental health. And I think there's been maybe a little bit more focus on what we can do proactively. And I think part of this comes down to leadership and the environment that an owner creates, that a GC creates, that a trade creates for their people. And I think it goes to, a lot of what you just referenced, which is listening to people, identifying the right tool for fixing the dynamic. How much attention, or maybe even just like yourself, you're a traveling superintendent, you're out of your kind of comfort zone quite often. What do you do to be in a good place mentally when you're approaching these projects?
Like here at the house they got me, just kind of to decompress each day. I'll come in, get a iced tea or a beer if I happen to have it in the fridge, just to unwind a little bit.
Yep.
Sit down, watch some TV, read a book, go for a walk in the park that's right across the street.
There you go.
Or go for a drive. When the wife comes down, we like to go antiquing, so we'll go unwind at an antique shop. The last couple of trips, we didn't find anything up in New Hampshire, but in Terre Haute and here, we found some pretty good deals that found out that they were worth a whole lot more than what we paid for. So,
yeah, well, I look forward to seeing you on that PBS show one of these days.
But yeah, when she comes down, we'll spend time together. Cook out here at the house, or she's planning on coming down, and our grandson's coming with her. He's
there you go.
going to be a senior in high school this year. But and our friend, I don't know if her husband's coming too, but Carol and Marie are like inseparable anymore. But the three of them are coming down for a week or so, and I've already bought some river tubes here. There's a river about 45 minutes away that everybody floats, so we're going to go float a river a day, and just you find different things, get out in nature, read a book. If I had my wood shop down here, I'd probably be out in the wood shop, because back home, when I need to decompress, I'll go out and start building things and designing something. And
I love that. I mean, I think hobbies are really important. Family is really important. But finding ways, finding what decompress means to you is really important.
yes.
Yeah, that's cool. Does your grandson know that you're an online video sensation?
Oh yeah, well, not video sensation, but yeah, he knows that. Well, the other year, our granddaughter's she'll be a sophomore at college this year. But when she was still in high school, her senior year, our grandson shot air rifle with her on the high school team that I coach, and she also shot air pistol and archery. But this year he didn't want to do it, so it was like, okay. So he's just doing his thing. He loves. Um, he's a Votech, and he's built his own computer.
Oh, cool.
And he's into that end of things, and he's when I'm home, he's always asking me questions and learn how to work on the lawnmower or work on the car. And
there we go. Yeah, some mechanical sense is applicable in so many different ways. So, tell me this, Clyde. I think like the traveling lifestyle can be hard, right? Being
Yes.
in a different city, being away from family. I've done it myself. I was working out of a San Diego office and was kind of, we'll call it stationed in Council Bluffs, Iowa for a bunch of data centers. And yeah, it's hard. It's tough, right? And I guess the question is like, I think the industry should be straight about that grind. Like, what does it cost? And I guess the question is, would you tell a younger person, young man, young woman, to do it?
I would tell him to think about it. It kind of really depends on each individual. Like years ago, no, I didn't want to travel. But now that it's like I haven't traveled since the 80s when I was in the Marines.
Yeah.
Being with what I was with the United States Marine Drum and Bugle Corps because I'm a drummer. I love my music, and I still do to this day. But I was with the West Coast unit out of 29 Palms from 84 to 90 when the drum corps disbanded. The only drum corps that's left now is at 8th and I in D.C. We did a lot of traveling then. When you're living out of a suitcase, because that was really traveling. I mean, at least here, you're in somewhere for a couple months at a time.
Yep.
But yeah, that kind of traveling when you're like a musician or something, when you're really traveling, yeah, you're living hotel to hotel, and that you can get burned out pretty quick.
Well, and I think to maybe the point you're making, I think there's a seasonality to some of that, which is, it was early in my career, and it created opportunity for me by getting me exposed to a lot earlier than I would have if I wouldn't have traveled. And so that made sense for that reason. And I think to your point, you're in a different season of your career, and it, there was an opening, and you've created opportunity by leveraging the traveling component. And so I think maybe that's like the through line is, yes, it's hard, but treat it as a season and not necessarily a career.
Yeah.
We
have a young superintendent he would actually worked with me as an apprentice on the one company I was running work for out of Pittsburgh. And he had got the offer to come back to this company because we both work for the same company now. But I just wish he would have kind of finished his apprenticeship. And when he sees this, he'll know that I'm talking about him. Because I said, it's up to you. But if you finish your apprenticeship and you want to go back to that side and do that, at least you got your journeyman to be able to fall back on if you don't like it. So we'll see how he's doing. Good. He still calls, and we talk to each other, he'll ask questions, but so far he's holding his own. But see how he likes it, a couple years down the road.
Yeah. So I've talked before on a previous episode about there's a trade publication published that there was a 23% increase in submissions to different trade programs by the younger kind of generations, Gen Z or the other ones. And so the kids are kind of showing up in the trades. And I think the question is going to be, can we keep them? Right? We've always had a little bit of a retention challenge, and I think with kids or folks that have kind of looked at professional realities or life as you show up at 9, you get your kombucha on tap, and then you like sit at a desk. Like the question is, can a generation trained on that variety of workplace culture adjust to the realities of construction? So there's that part, but then there's also the part where construction has to get to a point where it's a bit more appealing for the young generations to stay there and build a career there. Do you think we've made any strides on the retention side of this equation?
Yes and no. It kind of depends on the company. I think some companies are seeing a lot of turnover, but those workers that are leaving seem to be just going to a different company. So we're getting the retention in the trades, but it might not show it with different companies. Different companies are going to have higher turnover because of their culture and things of that nature. The younger workers are definitely looking for a place where they can grow, that are really serious about the trades.
Yeah.
That's why, I tell the young apprentices that were working with me when I was still bouncing in and out of my tools, it's like, don't get yourself, as a carpenter, don't get yourself tied down to one particular discipline. I says, learn the concrete side and the formwork, learn the framing and the drywall, learn the acoustical ceilings, learn the flooring and the tiling, learn your casework while you're watching these other trades. So learn everything you can, because carpentry covers such a wide gamut of the industry. And you go through the union apprenticeship, depending on where you're at. There's some parts of the country where everything, they kind of force you to get into a specialized area just because that's the way that whole system is set up there. But being out rural in like West Virginia, and that where I'm actually from now, you need to learn all parts of the trade to be able to make sure you stay busy.
What is your go-to on learning? Right? Like, are you just you ask a lot of questions? Do you observe?
Combination. I'll ask questions, observe, do research. Like, I'm part of the LinkedIn learning. If you get down through my profile, I've got like 230 certificates from LinkedIn learning classes.
Holy cow!
But yeah, I mean, different things, especially nowadays, like door hardware and that. If I were to jump right back into a door job, I would have to sit down and go through some of the code changes and everything else, because so much has changed. Hardware is constantly changing and being updated, the way that they're mounted, the way they act. Same way with like fire stopping or acoustical ceilings. The technology's constantly changing.
Yeah.
Things are being updated. Codes are being changed slightly. I mean, you're still basic, code for your 1 hour walls and everything else are all still basically the same. ADA codes are all basically the same, but how they're interpreted with different hardware changes. So, and some of your newer hardware, I just was on a job that had a magnetic hold open, but it was part of the door closure, not a normal magnetic hold open that I'm used to seeing mounted on the wall, and then the other part on the door, and when they touch, it holds it open until the fire alarm goes off.
Yeah.
This was actually part of the door closure. When you open the door the whole way, a built-in magnet system inside the door stops the door from coming closed. So that way they can keep the door open. But if the fire alarm goes off, it releases and the door shuts to make a fireproof room. It was like, I'm looking at it, it's like, I've never seen one of those before.
Yeah.
Because I'm used to the magnetic hold opens being mounted to the wall. So yeah, I mean, technology and everything is constantly changing. And that's the other thing I tell the youngsters, always keep learning. Don't stop learning. Always keep asking questions and learning things throughout your career.
Yeah, that's good advice. So maybe along those lines, a couple last questions. So, say I'm starting my carpentry apprenticeship tomorrow. What's the 3 things you're going to tell me?
Keep your eyes open. Listen to the instructor. Learn that tape measure inside and out. You'll learn things with that tape measure and that framing square that you've never thought possible.
Yeah, those things. It's your wizard. It's your wizard staff. Yeah, that's good. Would you? Let's zoom out real quick and just look at the state of the industry. Do you want your family in construction right now?
I would want the grandkids to do what makes them feel good.
That's very diplomatic of you, Clyde. Well done.
Both of them have worked with me on things at the house.
Yeah.
But our granddaughter, she's actually going into like psychology, but with an art minor, because she wants to do like art therapy. She's a really good artist, and she likes building things. So she's liable to jump back over into the building trades. And the same way with our grandson. He loves building things. He'll sit there and one of those 15,000 piece architectural Lego sets, he'll sit there and put that thing, work with it until it's done.
Wow.
He built a Titanic that the pieces were so small, it's like you almost have to pick them up with a pair of tweezers.
Well, that's what we need. We need to make construction modular so he can just take his Lego skills and apply it to a hotel.
That's what some of the couple things I've discussed is the ways to cut time, make different things modular.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Well, Clyde, this has been delightful. Thanks for taking some time with me. We'll do one last question.
Okay.
You've spent a bit of time in the industry in a lot of different roles. If you had the opportunity to go back in time and tell Clyde one thing, young Clyde, one thing, what would it be?
Learn more earlier. I didn't pay attention, I should say, when I was a superintendent, like back in the 90s. I was more focused on my trade's work and didn't pay attention to the other trades as much. So, yeah, learn to look at the big picture.
That's a good one. Well, Claude, where can people find you? You're on LinkedIn. Are you on TikTok? I can imagine you be on TikTok. You got to get on TikTok,
Everybody's been
Claude.
bugging me to get TikTok and YouTube. I've got a YouTube page up, but it's mainly for the race team. I need to write one, get one going to put a lot of these videos in that I have up onto YouTube at least, and maybe set up a TikTok. I just haven't done it yet.
Yeah. You'll be doing those TikTok dances in no time. All right, Clyde. Well, thank you again, and appreciate you coming on the show.
Yep. Have a great day. It was an honor. Thank you.